Hello again, and welcome back to the virtualinstructor.com part 2 of the colored pencil demo, drawing the apple here. And we'll pick up where we left off, adding some darker values at the bottom, and really here we're trying to concentrate on layering our colors. Now it's time for me to go back and add some of the highlighted areas with the white, and this is really where the magic of colored pencils really comes into play. I'm adding the white on the areas that are going to be highlighted from our light source. And I'm going right over the colors that I've already put down. What's going to happen when you do this is the colors are going to naturally blend together. Because colored pencils have a wax binder, that wax helps to pull the colors that you've already put down together, and it really makes it look a lot smoother and a lot more realistic and believable. And you'll see I'm taking the white, I'm just going all the way down the bottom of the apple, just going right over the colors that I've already put down, even the darker colors. White is a great color to use for blending. They also make colorless blenders. I've always kind of used the white, but colorless blenders work as well. One problem I've noticed with the colorless blenders is that if there's not a lot of pigment on the surface, it kind of just moves that pigment around. It doesn't necessarily blend it. The white, though, really creates a nice effect when you blend it. Even putting some of that in the areas that are shadowed. You can see up there at the top of the apple, it's really starting to look realistic and believable. So when we're using colored pencils, we want to keep in mind the best way to use them, and that's to color heavy. So you really build up your colors, layer your colors, and that's really just putting color on top of other colors, mixing your colors. Apples, in this case the apple is a red, but I've used all kinds of colors in here, really mixed different versions of those colors, mixed different versions of the reds to make it look more realistic. And mix your colors, take your time. This is really a time-consuming activity, and if you like to outline things, outline last, and you'll see me outline at the end. Okay, right now what you're seeing me do here is I'm adding a little bit of blue on there to kind of really make that shadow a little bit more realistic. And I mentioned in the previous video that blue and brown are going to make a more natural black, a more realistic black. You want to try to stay away from black as much as possible. Every now and then you'll need to use it, but I kind of find that I don't really need to use it that often. Mostly the blue and the brown mixed together do the trick. Okay, I'm going to continue adding more and more color, layering that color, and that's going to return to me a nice, rich, complex color, which is really closely to how we see things anyway. So more of the lighter red on top of some of those darker areas, and as I go I'm putting more pressure on the pencil, really building up that wax on the surface. Remember, if you want to do anything well, it takes practice, it takes time, it takes effort. Colored pencil is no different. You really have to learn the process and practice with it to get really strong, get an idea of what the medium's going to do when you use it. Okay, our apple's starting to look a lot more realistic. Starting to pop off the paper a little bit at the top. Going back with some brown now, trying to get rid of some of the lines that seem to be a little too strong. We do want that linear quality, though, in the form of the apple. It helps us really see the form of the apple instead of seeing it as a flat object. We can see where the apple kind of comes out. Alright, now I'm going to go back and I'm going to outline the apple a little bit. You know, with all mediums, you don't necessarily have to outline. A lot of times we see things, we see these lines that aren't really there. It's just where an object ends and another one begins. But with colored pencils, I find that it's a good idea to kind of come back and define where some of the edges of objects. Being careful to stay away from the areas that are highlighted, though, and I'm making those lines really kind of light. You want to think about line quality. Wherever your apple is more shadowed or where it's thicker, you can make that line a little bit thicker. And where your apple is a little bit thinner or highlighted, you would make that line a little bit thinner or even non-existent. Now I'm going to go back and blend some of my colors a little bit more with the white. I'm also bringing some of that highlight down a little bit further on the apple. I really love what happens when you blend the materials together. Some of the more pricier colored pencils that you can buy are going to allow you to blend a little bit more than some of the cheaper pencils. Some of the cheaper pencils don't blend exceptionally well. The more expensive ones blend a lot better. So now we've got our apple finished. I'm going to give you a little indication of the ground, and I'm going to do this quickly. It's not going to be totally rendered well, but it will help you see a little bit better how the apple is going to stand out a little bit in three-dimensional space. So I'm adding a blue bottom, just going in a direction. The table's going to be sitting on a blue table. Going right over the area that I described as being the shadowed area. All the way up to the edge, just trying to keep it going in the same direction. A lot of times when you have lines going in all different directions, it can be confusing and it can take away from the realistic qualities of the image. Now I'm going back with the brown, going right on top of the blue, indicating that shadow a little bit more, putting a little bit of pressure down on my pencil. I'm going to go back over the blue with the white, make it a lighter blue, make the color a little bit more solid. And I'm going to go in a different direction than the lines I made the first time with the blue. That's going to help things mix together a little bit better. Even might blend that shadowed area just a little bit too with the white. Go back over it with blue again to try to get rid of some of those lines that are happening there as well. Make that shadow a little bit darker, a little bit more realistic. And remember, there's no black used here at all. It's just blue and brown. Blue and brown mixed together really make a more natural black. Like I said, I'm really not going to spend a lot of time with this table, just giving a little bit of contrast to the apple. Of course, in your colored pencil drawings, you want to pay attention to everything. Really make sure that you give the same attention to everything that you draw. But for this demonstration, it's about the apple. Colored pencils, when used properly, is really just a process of layer after layer and really building up your colors. Really building up those colors. At this point, I'll go back and define those outlines a little bit more. Remember, outlining is one of the things you want to do last, because the colored pencil can go right on top of each of itself relatively easily. So, all right, we'll add a little bit of green in the background. I'll do that magically. Add a little bit of yellow to that green to give it a little bit more depth. And there you have your finished apple, colored pencils. Remember to color heavy, layer your colors, mix your colors, outline last, and most importantly, take your time, and you'll be able to master colored pencils soon enough. Thank you. I've enjoyed this video. Look to see you back at thevirtualinstructor.com for more videos.